So what is the thought for the day? This is one that's near and dear to my heart to kind of wrap up our week, I think, on the path that we've been on. And it's this idea of the frequency of care. So the thought for the day is the frequency of care, the word care, C-A-R-E. The idea, when you think about the word care, we often think about, well, we care about our family, or we care about our pets, or we care about our children, which is a very superficial way. It's the surface way of thinking about care. But the word care is actually it's based on something called the eighth principle. And it's kind of like what you've heard me say many times, like first principles. What's first principles? And the eighth principle is this idea of care. And I want you to start to think about this in a different way today. So, because I'm going to ask you a couple of questions, and it's not going to be the most surface answer that comes to your mind. You're going to have to sit with this and dig a little bit deeper over the weekend. But when you think about this idea of care as an eighth principle, it's kind of like a principle of the universe. A principle of the universe is, it is really like an operating system. And the idea is that think about this, it's really interesting. For things to survive, they need to be cared for. A mother needs to care for her children. Plants need to be watered. So it's very much based on the law of gender and gestation that like things only come in, it's like a kind of a causation. Things only come into manifestation when they're cared for. When they're cared for, interesting. Humans, because we think of love romantically and we have a lot of misconceived notions of what care really is, we think, well, like care and love have to come together, and they don't. Because you can care for something and not love it. You see that all the time. Does that make sense? You can care for something but not love it. And you can love something and not care for it. How many times has that happened in your life? So when I'm going to ask you some questions, I don't want you to go down the romantic love route, or I care for animals and people. Don't say the most obvious thing in your mind. Really think about this as a principle of life. For something to come into manifestation, for something to grow, for something to evolve, it has to be cared for. And I want you to start to think about your desire that way. I want you to start to think about your manifestations that way. Like, do I care enough about them? This is why Napoleon Hill calls it a magnificent obsession. It's a thing that you wake up thinking about. Like, I woke up at 3 a.m. this morning. Like, my brain was just so on because I'm like downloading all these ideas for what's next. It's because I care so much. There's no lukewarm in my heart about this work or about any of you. And I'm sure you can feel that. People grow when they're nurtured. Yeah. And so some of you have to really evaluate, do I have that level of care for the thing that I seek? Like, am I really caring for it? Am I watering it? Am I giving it the care that it needs? Not necessarily just the love, but the real care. And it's a real causal principle. It's a real principle of motion, caring for something. So I'm going to ask you 2 questions that I want you to ponder over the weekend to give you some reflection. What do I really care about? What do I really care about? And then why do I really care about that or those things? Why? What and why? Now, like I said, it's not obvious always. So why this is important is this idea of care is very much linked to your desire, that sort of idea of like the fons generigo, the origin of you. It's like why you're specifically designed in this time, in this lifetime, to carry out the things that you're doing. So it's very specific to you. For example, some people really care about animals and others are like, I don't give 2 shits about animals, right? Seriously. Some people, no, like I'm not, like some people like are obsessed, right? Some people really care about certain things, while other people don't care at all. Some people really care about nice jewelry. Other people don't care at all. What do you care about, and why do you care about it? This is a real sit with it kind of idea, because it's going to get you very clear on the next level of your purpose. Very clear on the next level of your purpose. Very clear on the next level of your desire. We're going to talk more about that next week, like opening the next portal, the next door to the next thing. But you have to understand why you care about what you care about. and what you care about. And again, please don't tell me you care about your kids. Like, we all care about our kids. I'm talking go one step beyond that and not say I care about people, because that's not specific enough either. Do you see where the mind, like, it's like I'd actually invite you to go sit quietly somewhere for 15 to 20 minutes alone this weekend without your phone and without distractions, and really sit and ask, what do I really care about and why? Like, just let it come through you. You'll be fascinated. You'll be fascinated. So why am I talking? Why do I also think this is important? And you've heard me say this many times, but I think this is like another level. You've heard me say, when we care about each other, we calibrate to one another. When we care deeply about each other, we sync up. And I have seen different varieties of people in the work where they work with a mentor or a coach, or they're working with someone and they don't really care about that person. It's very much like, what can I get? And it's not a make wrong, but you're not going to calibrate that way. We calibrate when I care about you, you care about me, and we care about each other. Very much so. And we live in a world where a lot of people don't care about a lot of things other than themselves. And that's why it's all fucked up. And I'm someone that cares very deeply about people. But it's not just enough that I care about you. You've got to start really caring about each other, about me. And I'm not saying you do or you don't. Like, there's this exchange of energy. It's in that, and my understanding of this has really shifted more recently. When we connect deeply with one another, it's like we absolutely sync up to the wisdom of the next level. When all we're doing is like, I'm sitting here, I'm just listening, because I think in just listening, that'll be enough. But there's this next level, which is really caring. So my invitation, because we're always going to another level, there's always another level, is how can I care more about myself, care more about the group, care more about all of this, show up like my experience. This is really next level. This is kind of how I view, this is kind of in the realm of excellence and professionalism. It's like my showing up and my energy in which I show up is affecting other people's experience. And I'm responsible for that. Does that make sense? So it's not just like, oh, I can't because the dog has to eat at that, like, whatever reasons. It's like, no, like, you're here. And it's like my experience of myself and my experience of how I'm showing up is changing the experience of other people. Does that make sense? And so it takes everything to the next level. The frequency of caring is literally the portal to calibrate, tuning up to the next level of wisdom, the next level of prosperity, the next level of love, the next level of finances. If you lived your life, this is kind of like the game that I play. Everywhere that I go, I don't just show up and I'm like, serve me. Some people are just like, serve me, I'm here. No, it's like, I care. I want to ask questions. I want to get, and I would invite you to do this over the weekend. Like, you go to Starbucks, like, how can I show up with a different level of care for the barista? Not just transactionally. Like, I care about this experience. I care about this person who's making me their coffee. I ask people, I go to Starbucks at 6:30 in the morning, and these baristas probably think I'm totally fucking whacked out. I'm like, what's your name? Like, I ask them, like, I talk to them at 6:30 in the morning. I'm like asking questions, and they're like, who is this person? But when I walk in at 6:30 in the morning, they're so excited to see me. Adele, how are you? Because I want them to have a good experience. I want to care about each other. But a lot of people, I bet you just show up in your life transactionally a lot of the time. There's almost a level of we can have entitlement, like people just need to buy me, get me my coffee. But they're people. What's their experience of you? This is a big one. I feel like people want to overstep the very basic principles of life. They're like, why am I not abundant yet? It's like, because you're kind of being a dick to people. You're kind of an asshole. I don't know. Are you someone that people want to hang out with? Are you caring about the group? Are you caring about yourself? Are you caring about the experience, and you're all incredibly caring people. I know that. And I think there's another level available for all of you about really looking like, if I'm part of a group or an experience, how are other people experiencing me? Have you ever thought of that? Can you write that down? How are others experiencing me? That's important. That's really important. So I want you to move through your weekend with this idea of, what do I care about and why? Go deep, like sit in the woods, you know, like, or sit on a tree, or sit somewhere quietly, sit on a tree, and ask yourself, what do I care about specifically and why? And then as you move through your weekend, yeah, how are other people experiencing me, right? As you move through your weekend, ask yourself, like, as you're doing things, you're going to get a coffee, you're going to get groceries, you're doing your thing, because this is going to lead to Monday's conversation. Start to like care about the people there that are serving you the food or the coffee or the groceries or whatever. Maybe ask questions like, how long have you worked here? Do you know, I've had the most amazing conversations in Ubers. Uber drivers probably think I'm totally also nuts. They'll tell me, like, I came from Somalia and like my parents are still there. I have 3 kids and we left the war. And it's like, I'm just like, holy fuck, you learn about people. But people are so busy to get somewhere, to go somewhere, to do something all about themselves. And they're like, why am I not happy or prosperous? Because you don't care. You just don't care about other people, not to the level that you can. Can you imagine what kind of a world we would live in if people really cared? If people asked you those kinds of questions? Not so busy getting somewhere, rushing somewhere. This goes in line. It is connection as everything. Connection is the key to calibration. You're not going to calibrate to wisdom if you're not connecting. I could be working with someone like Tony Robbins, and if I don't give a fuck about him, I'm not going to connect to his wisdom. Does that make sense? I'm just not. I'll intellectually get it, but I'm not going to get it like in my heart. One of the things, I'll say this last piece and then I will let you go, but where was I going on this train of thought? Right. Oh, okay. So you heard me say how I'm always 10 minutes early, right? So actually someone said exactly 22 minutes early to everything. So I'm always early. And part of that habit was because growing up with my parents, they were very like, it was almost like very strict in terms of like being early. Being early was being on time. Being on time, you're already late. That was the mindset I grew up with. So my dad was always dropping me off to school 15 fucking minutes early, and he would show up to pick me up at a party 15 minutes early. So he's like the person that you want to drop you at the party, but not to pick you up. You know what I'm saying? Like in high school, because you're like, Dad, I want to see you till 10 p.m. And he's like, at 9:45, he's already there. Always the first person. When I was doing ballet lessons, I would always be at ballet 15 minutes early, and he'd always be there 15 minutes early to pick me up, like clockwork. I only know early is on time. And I talked about when I went to Sedona, because I was early at 3:45 in the morning to do this meditation, I got to sit with the Kundalini teacher, and we had this most incredible, it was actually a life-altering experience conversation, but it's because I was early. And because we were in this conversation where I was caring about her, and it was just like a beautiful exchange. And it was awesome because I was there and we had that experience. And one of the things I find with people is that you're always rushing and you're always 2 minutes behind, and you're just missing something all the time. Does that make sense? And you don't even know what you're missing. You really don't know what you're missing. So all of this is kind of coming together with excellence, professionalism, care, showing up a certain way, calibrating to that next level. Can I be everywhere this weekend early? Can I like navigate life where I'm not chasing time, but I'm using time wisely? Like I'm not always running out of it. We have the same 24 hours in the day. And then care about people. Look at the difference between being transactional and really, really taking a minute to get to know somebody and see what starts to open up. Make sense? It's gonna be really fun. I can't wait to see what happens.